Hello, everyone. I'm Serena Fazan of the Serena Fazan Network, brought to you by Red House Streaming. We are committed to helping those impacted by Hurricane Ian. You can see the unprecedented damage caused after Ian made landfall just short of a Category 5 storm. So many lost their lives. Thousands are without homes as a massive recovery mission is underway. We are teaming up with the Red Cross. Please join us in this rebuilding effort. It's as simple as scanning the QR code or following the link below. Stay safe. Everyone has a story to tell. It's my mission to tell it. Unscripted, unedited, we are on the record. Hi everyone, I'm Serena Fazan and welcome to this episode of On the Record, where we hear incredible stories from inspiring people. Today we're talking about business, okay? When I talk about business, sometimes I get hot flashes because I never thought I would be in a business. But what if you have that $1 million idea and you need the backing, right? So we have two great guys, investors, angel investors, all this other stuff that we're going to talk about, right? Scott Kelly and Joey Rosati.
Correct.
Because here it says the wrong name. Sorry, but this is unedited, unscripted. We love this show. So Joey, we'll start with you. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Cool. So been in Tampa for a long time. I consider myself an angel investor. Really have background in buying, selling, operating small businesses. So everything from your ugly screen door manufacturing companies to like
go ahead, say it.
Dumpster rental companies. One of the businesses in my portfolio is also a strip club, the 2001 Odyssey. It's got a spaceship on the roof. Everybody knows that. So it's been a blast. Over time, a lot of investors like to just try different things. So I also invest in startup companies, and that's where Scott and I met.
I know, and Scott, gosh, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the state of Florida. You just moved here from Arizona.
Week number 3.
Well, we love having you, and come on, I mean, I love the state of Florida. We're
Absolutely.
getting more and more people. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I've been a deal guy for 30 years, started on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in the early 80s, moved to San Francisco, worked as an investment banker from 86 to 93, basically taking tech companies public. Actually, ironically enough, I took Rick's Cabaret public many years ago.
Right. That's right.
The first strip club to go public on the exchange. 93, during the dot-com boom, I set up my own incubator and working in investing companies, and was fortunate to have a few exits between 93 and 2000. 2000, I thought I was going to retire and move to Arizona. I did move to Arizona, but I did not retire. And as we were talking about before, I had invested in a record label, knowing nothing about the music business, and that turned to an 8-year run with a music entertainment company that we had some pretty good success with. 2008, I launched Black Dog Venture Partners as our accelerator. We work with technology companies, primarily software and other technology companies and consumer product companies to help them raise capital, scale their business, and exit their business. And I've been fortunate to raise a few $1 billion in my career.
Wow.
Have a few exits myself and help another 20 or so companies go from idea to exit.
Guys, okay, I have so many questions. Like, I never imagined personally I would be, an entrepreneur. I mean, I worked in traditional news for years and years, and who knew I'd have my own show and everything, so it just kind of happened. But how do people start from the very beginning? Like, how do you find the people to invest in? Or should I ask the question, how do you pitch the investor to begin with?
Well, I think there's two separate questions there. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, struggle with obviously getting in front of investors. And then they struggle once they get in front of investors. So what we do is two things. One, I built a relationship with about 13,000 investors over the last 30 years that are always looking for deal flow. And so we work with the entrepreneurs to, one, help them identify the right investor, because that's the important thing. You don't want to have dumb money. You want to have money that can be helpful to you, not just from a financial standpoint, but maybe from a business standpoint. Yep. And then we coach them on how to present in front of investors, and then we put them in front of investors. About 10 years ago, we launched what we call VC Fast Pitch, mm-hmm. Where we actually put investors in the same room as entrepreneurs. I don't like to call it Shark Tank. It's not TV.
Well, because you know what? Okay, but that is hilarious. And Joey, I want you to weigh in on this. Because before the show, we have a conversation before the show, and I said, oh my gosh, it's like Shark Tank. And you said, Scott, yes. And you rolled your eyes. Why is that?
Well, again, it's TV. And obviously we're on TV. And, you know, they are trying to get that, you know, X factor or that buzz factor. For us, we're down to the meat and potatoes. Do you have a good management team? Do you have a good idea? Do you have your crap together? And I think that's the primary difference between what we do. You know, we've been, you know, fortunate to help literally hundreds of companies raise well over $100 million through these events. Joey has participated in our panel and actually has invested in companies through our events. And actually, we're going to be hosting an event in Tampa Bay, October 13th at the University of Tampa.
Oh my gosh, okay, I'd like to be invited to that. I have many
Absolutely.
questions on what you said. But Joey, so let's go to you. Like, you're an angel investor, as you said. For people who may not know, and believe it or not, there are people who do not know, right? I mean, we don't expect everybody to know everything, and there's never a dumb question. What exactly is an angel investor?
Sure. So a lot of people don't get fearful of the fancy words. An angel investor just means somebody who's got a little bit of extra liquid capital and wants to invest, right? And sometimes, you know, why do we not like the word Shark Tank? Because number one, we're not all billionaires, right? We don't have crazy money, and sometimes these businesses just need an extra 50,000, a couple $100,000. Really, not many of them are raising more than a couple $1 million. And when you pool a handful of what are called angels together, you can get there. So again, it's less formal than you think. And so, you know, what is an angel? Again, it's usually just higher net worth individuals who have some discretionary income and want to put it to work. So again, it doesn't matter what the genre is, doesn't matter if it's a doctor, a lawyer, wherever you came from, right? If you have a little extra money, you can put it to work.
And truly, I mean, it is an angel, right? Like, because that angel is helping someone fulfill someone's dream. But Joey, how old are you though?
31.
31. I am so proud of you. 31 and you're already an angel investor?
Correct.
That's pretty good, right?
It's very good.
It comes with its ups and downs. Don't kid yourself.
Well, okay, so, you know, the show, as you guys know, is unedited and scripted. It's conversation. How did you get started? I mean, to be only 31 years old and already be an angel investor.
So it all started about a decade ago. Everybody gets the spam links, right? Like the links that in your spam inbox. I clicked one of them by accident. I was running a business. I was working for somebody, and it locked the whole business down. It was called a crypto locker. You know, I panicked. I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what to do. I had to go buy Bitcoin in order to basically pay the ransom to unlock the business.
Wow.
And this is when Bitcoin was under $100, and thankfully I didn't get fired. But that moment was the moment that I realized what Bitcoin was, and that really kind of took me down the rabbit hole of seeing what alternative currencies are, investing, and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh! See, this is why I love this show. The stories that we learn. Well, how did you get started, Scott? And how old were you when you started?
I was in my early 20s. You know, actually.
Congratulations to you too.
Well, what happened was my very first job out of college, I went from New York to Lafayette, Louisiana, and worked as a retail stockbroker.
Well, believe it or not, I worked in New Orleans, Louisiana, for the station that Hoda Kotb worked at.
Okay.
And I went there to work, and she left for Dateline.
And it was an interesting story. It was my third day in the business. I was making cold calls, and this gentleman, Mr. Hebert, there's only like I think 3 last names in all the entire state. So Mr. Hebert bought $500,000 of bonds over the telephone. And I'm 22 and change. I didn't know what to do. And my boss says, go out there and pick up that check. So I drive out, and I drive into what was a wooden check, and fill out the paperwork. And Mr. Hebert, he gives me a check for $3 million. And I said, Mr. Hebert,
$3 million?
Yeah. And before, you know, and the gentleman might have had 7 teeth in his mouth. And so I asked Mr. Hebert, so how did you get this money? He goes, follow me. And he walked me around to the side of his house, and he goes, what used to be rice fields was oil derricks as far as the eye could see. And he basically said, I only have a 3rd grade education, but I'm smart enough to cash my $10 million a month royalty check.
Oh my gosh.
And he became a very large investor and connected me with a bunch of other people, helped me finance, you know, what I do today.
So let me ask you guys this, though. As people are watching or listening, how do they get in front of you, though, in the first place? Like, you hear about it, right? And this, again, angel investors, you guys can make people's dreams come true, but how do they find you?
Well, it's a process. And I tell people what you shouldn't do. On a daily basis, I'm sure this happens to Joey too, I'll get a LinkedIn connection request, and within seconds, they're emailing me their pitch deck or their business plan. Yeah. That's the wrong way. Finding investors is about establishing relationships. There's an old adage that if you ask for money, you'll get advice. So ask for a lot of advice. And
no, I love that. If you ask for, okay, would you repeat that? Because I want that to absorb.
Sure. If you ask for money, you typically get advice.
So ask for a lot of advice.
Exactly. You get the opposite. And so it's really about researching. And the other, and the other part of it is Joey's an angel investor. You wouldn't know that by his resume or his conversation. It's always those hidden pockets of money. Especially in the angel world, which is much different than the venture capital world. It's the people that you don't suspect. A book I read many years ago, George Daly wrote the book, The Millionaire Next Door. And he had a whole philosophy about defining the pseudo-affluent versus the really affluent. The pseudo-affluent is a doctor 3 years out of med school. They have $500,000 in student debt. A wife or a girlfriend that's spending them, they have no money. Yeah. But it's the person who owns, the screen business or the oil derricks or a junkyard. It's all unfound money, and Joey's a prime example of that.
They call them like blue-collar millionaires. A lot of times it's the guy in a blue jeans and a T-shirt and an F-150 who has the money versus the fancier car. But going back to the question of like, where do you find? Usually most people, if you have an idea, it's friends and family to start, right? You kind of don't have a choice.
Yep.
You gotta knock on the doors of people who at least trust you as a human being, and they listen. You put it together. Only once you kind of have that business plan outlined, and again, you put something together, do you reach out to, there's incubators, and again, the panel that Scott's talking about is a little bit more developed. You actually got to know what you're talking about. But if you're really coming and you just have that brand new idea, there's, if you just, again, Google it, go on YouTube. Every town has little incubators. I think in Tampa, there's Embark, there's Tampa Bay Wave. Exactly. Places that, nonprofit that will help you get there.
Guys, so interesting to talk about this. Okay, we're going to go to a break. We have so many more questions. And I think when we come back, we should also talk about some of the companies that you took chances with and where they are now. Sure. All right, guys, so stay with us. And I want to point out my voice. I actually like it sounding like this, but yes, I'm losing my voice because we've been working so much. But I said to Carl Prentice, the director of production, and Beth Weber, our senior producer, I'm like, actually, I feel like I sound like Lauren Bacall. Wouldn't it be great if my voice stayed like this for a while?
Use that for the dating show.
That's right, for the dating show, which we're also going to bring up because that's my favorite show. All right, stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
Why is Precision Garage Door a name you can trust? Because of the Precision Promise.
Precision Garage Door, this is Sophia. How may I help you?
Your call is answered day or night by a live person ready to help.
That's our promise.
Our technicians will arrive on time in one of our recognizable, fully stocked vehicles.
That's our promise.
And there's never an extra charge for nights or weekends to repair your garage door. Quality service quickly from a name you can trust. That's the Precision Promise.
Precision Door Service, a name you can trust.
Labelswap is a retail store that you can bring in the items you don't want anymore. We will buy them for either a cash offer or store credit, and you can also shop the items as well. We carry anything from H&M, Lululemon, up to your luxury items like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. There's nothing really around like it here in the market. It is a fun, personalized experience.
Same time, the amount of people who would...
Welcome back to On the Record. Yeah, we always talk within the commercial breaks because they're fascinating conversations. Oh my gosh, Scott Kelly, Joey Rosati, thank you so much for being here. Angel investors talking about entrepreneurship. And we were talking before the break on how people actually get in front of guys like you. And Joey, you were saying, it really starts with family and friends, but is it also a dream? And do you feel people, me and my multiple questions, just throw them all out, because I never thought, again, I would be an entrepreneur. Do you think it starts with the dream, though, of being an entrepreneur to even?
I think it's partly dream, and I think people find problems that affect them and affect people they know and care about.
Just what happened? Like
Exactly.
with the scam, with the spam email.
And so they use that as their motivation to find a solution.
Yep.
And I think that's really the core of a successful entrepreneur, someone who has a passion about a problem that affected them and many people they know, and their passion to find that solution. And that solution, it could be technology, it could be any number of things.
You know, I had a lovely woman on the show, Eileen Lieber. She has a business called Passion PR, and she said that, I don't know, she said typically they say if you can make it through entrepreneurship after 3 years, then you're pretty much in. Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The average business goes bankrupt in 2 years. The overwhelming percentage of businesses go bankrupt in 2 years. So make a plan to survive for 2 years.
It's also about scratching an itch. I feel like in our generation, or at least my generation, technology has allowed anyone to be an entrepreneur. And especially with COVID and everything pushing to remote work, it's not even about the dream anymore, in my opinion. It's you could just do it in your spare time. And a lot of these businesses are starting to pop up as side hustles and side gigs, and then they're making just as much money as they do in their job. And again, even more so, it's that a lot of people don't like to work for others anymore. Everybody's had the bad boss experience, and there's no better way to cure the bad boss. It's not going to go find another boss, it's be your own boss.
So Joey, Scott, I was going to say actually, is it okay if we say on the record that we might be a little older?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that okay to say?
Joey is the youngster on this panel.
Okay.
Let's just be honest.
So that's okay to say. So would you say what Joey just mentioned about it's so much easier nowadays because of technology and everything? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Someone can set up a store on Amazon or Shopify. They can build a website for a few $100s and be in business. You've got, influencers on Instagram with multi-million-dollar businesses just because they create good content. So absolutely.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. More opportunities, right? Okay, so let's talk about, is it true? Well, I know it's true because we talked about it before the show. So you invested, one of the companies was Match.com, right? So,
well, when I was an investment banker in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of those kind of companies. And so Match.com was the company we raised money for. We helped them go public. And there was literally hundreds of companies we helped raise capital in the 90s.
I had to mention that show because, of course, my Dating in America series, so that's one of the many companies. And I was like, wow, Match.com. Would you still say that they are the leaders in that industry?
I would think so. I mean, there's obviously, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of media players that are getting involved in that space because, honestly, they have a large database of users and they have eyeballs. And, again, I'm not an expert in the space, but there has been some consolidation. Yep. I think there's been a lot of folks that want to have that particular niche in dating. Maybe they're dating farmers. There's a farmers app.
I know there's an app for everything.
We've all seen those commercials for farmers only, I think.
And they're pretty cringy, let's be honest. But the reality is, it's happening today. In this environment, companies are, because we have an economy that's possibly going into recession, companies are going to acquire other companies to build that economy of scale and build that reach. So they are one of the more significant players, but there's other ones that don't really.
But again, you remember, in hindsight 2020, everybody says, "Oh man, that was an obvious pick."
Sure.
In the moment, these are not obvious picks.
Yes, talk more about that, Joey.
The nature of any investing is that unless you really know what you're doing, you're kind of having to cut multiple checks across multiple companies, and the nature of the beast is that some will fail, and then the minority will do really well to cover the losses of your other ones. So, again, going back to like the Match.com days, whatever today's Match.com is, nobody really knows that it's going to be the next big one, but you kind of have to take the risk, take the gamble, and that's where angels and venture capitalists, they know that it's a risk, and it could be huge or it could not.
Okay, so that leads to my next question. What do you need to hear, do you feel, like what makes you want to invest? What are you looking for?
Everybody has their different ingredients. I obviously care about the human first, right? Can they talk to me? Are they good people, right? If you can't carry on a conversation for a couple minutes, then you're not going to be able to sell your product or raise more money. It usually starts with the person, right? And then from there, it's what is the idea? Can you articulate the idea clearly? There you go. And not only that, is there a need for it, right? You know, everybody wants to create the Uber of whatever, right? Or they want to just slap something old onto new, but you know, sometimes it's just the smallest little problems that people are solving that that you invest in.
So what are some of the companies that you have invested
Go ahead. What do you
in?
got?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have stakes in about 50 different companies, from software companies to IoT, basically mobile companies, consumer brand companies, cybersecurity, and others. But to echo one thing that Joey said, you know, he talked about people. You know, it really comes down to the team, because there are a lot of great ideas out there, but you have to have people that can execute. You know, I would love to be a professional football player. There's no way I'm going to be. So I can have the idea in my head, but if I can't make it happen, that's the key. And so when Joey talks about people, the people that run the business are going to be the core thing that, you know, dictates success.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say there's no I in team, right? I mean, I repeat it over and over here because it's true. And, you know, Joey, something else that you said really resonated, though, when you said you have to have a clear idea of what you want people to invest in. And, you know, quite frankly, sometimes that's what I struggle with. I love my shows. I know I want to share positive messages. I want this show to be positive change because I feel like we're seeing such negative change. That's why I have the other shows too. But sometimes I even feel I don't know how to clearly, you know, explain it. So if you have that problem, what do? You
got to practice. You got to practice. You got to do it. This is why you have your family, your friends. You know, some people are brilliant, but they talk too much, or some people are brilliant and they can't talk enough. They can't articulate the fact that they're geniuses inside, and they got to get it out. So you got to go. I mean, Scott actually does coach a lot of companies in how to pitch as well, like actually physically your body presence, how you speak, what you say.
And it's important because the reality is when you're dealing with an investor like Joey, you're not going to get a lot of time.
Right, so how much time do you really get? You just get a few minutes typically,
it's interesting, you know, when we started doing our events, it was a 1-minute pitch. And our very first event in Phoenix, the company pitched for 1 minute, raised $250,000 that day, $3 million 6 months later, sold their company for several $100 million after that, and now they're an investor listening to pitches. And it's really coming down to really being concise, because I tell people, if you don't get, it's kind of like TV. If you don't get them in the hook in the first few minutes, you're not going to get any more time. And so you have to have a succinct, you know, message that you can communicate. And that takes practice. And
so when you say it takes practice, should we be writing it down? Should we be practicing it in front of a mirror? What should we be doing?
I always say go run into somebody random and tell them what you do.
Oh.
Good.
Absolutely.
But and they call it the elevator pitch for a reason, right? You only have 30 seconds until you get to your floor and that guy walks out. That 30 seconds, you got to at least be able to convince them to take another phone call.
What about, okay, all these tips are so great. What about the way you dress and the way you appear? Because I remember, you know, a news director told me once, you want to be an anchor, you dress like an anchor. So God forbid something happens, you know, a plane crashes, God forbid, like that you are ready for the job. Right. You're ready to go.
We might be different here.
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot. I can tell you when I was in the East Coast, I traveled to California, the first day of meetings, they're wearing shorts and flip-flops, and I'm in a full suit. And the next day I would go in shorts and flip-flops, and they put on a suit. And honestly, I don't really care what you look like. I mean, again, you don't want to be a slob.
Yeah, there's a low threshold here.
There's a balance.
Let's put a shirt on.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say, again, unless you're pitching, I don't know, my personal opinion is if you're in a suit and tie, you're trying too hard.
Exactly.
You know,
Interesting.
You know, a polo. There really is no dress code to this.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to an investor in town yesterday. And he told me, we're talking about people from Miami. And he goes, yeah, all the guys from Miami are wearing black suits. They just want to steal my company. and so again, look like you're trustworthy, but don't try too hard.
Don't try too hard.
Again, depends who you're pitching to, right? Angels are usually your average Joes who are, they're working their business. They just want to invest. Don't intimidate, right? But if you're pitching to a more formal, large company, maybe you do need to dress up a little bit better. Yeah.
So, again, all this is such great knowledge. There is money out there, though, for entrepreneurs, right? Look at you, Scott. You're shaking your head like, yes, there's so much.
CNBC announced 3 days ago there was $3.6 trillion.
3.6 trillion?
Trillion with a T in private equity capital out there.
Yeah, it's no matter what you hear about, the economy going down, there's just so much money sitting on the sidelines. We just raised a $15 million crypto fund called Druid Ventures, and we invest solely in picks and shovels in the crypto space. Even when the crypto market is in its depths, there's still money put aside. It's always going to be there.
So are there certain companies, and that's very good to hear, are there certain companies or ideas currently that you are looking for?
Obviously, blockchain is a very hot space. We have an investment in several companies in the space, and we just raised $22 million for a company called Fortress Blockchain Technologies. I think that space isn't going anywhere.
Nope.
It may be a crypto winter, but it's not. Spring is coming, and the companies will remain. I'm a personal fan of software. I like mobility, meaning the things you can do on your phone and the things you can do through wireless. And there's a lot of great technology out there, and there's a lot of great businesses. I think you've got to determine what you are most comfortable with and what you want to learn about.
Yeah, you shouldn't be choosing it based on what's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It should be from within what you're passionate about.
Anything, there's an investor for anything. So again, like one of the companies I just invested in from his panel was Internet of Things wireless sensor technology. I have no background in that, but the founder was fantastic. He had a great set of clients. I mean, nothing in my experience, but boom, he raised about $500,000 from the last pitch, and he's moving on.
Love it. So we're wrapping up the show, but before we do, tell us a little bit more about the October 13th event.
So October 13th, we're actually hosting our VC Fast Pitch at the University of Tampa. And basically, it's an all-day event. Joe will be part of our panels, along with some of his associates, and we'll have approximately 30 investors from Florida and throughout the country. We'll have 12 companies present, and we'll have a panel at the end and give them some of the tips that we talked about today.
So if you want to go, or if people want to get involved, how do they do that? Can they right now?
You can go to vcfastpitch.com and get all the details there.
Guys, I've got to tell you, what a pleasure to have you on the show. I hope to have you guys both come back. Dating in America, Love in America, CEO 360, Lighter Side of Sports with JP Peterson. There's all sorts of shows. And speaking of that, if you have a show that you would like to pitch, please send it to the team. Personal Love, Business Community. You can send your ideas to production@redhousestreaming.com. Then if you could please share the shows on our multiple social media platforms. As you can see, guys, we're everywhere, right? And we're also on Roku with some major announcements also coming soon. Again, I love my job, and the biggest reason I love my job is because I get to meet such great people. And you guys just made my week.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Likewise, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Hello, everyone. I'm Serena Fazan of the Serena Fazan Network, brought to you by Red House Streaming. We are committed to helping those impacted by Hurricane Ian. You can see the unprecedented damage caused after Ian made landfall just short of a Category 5 storm. So many lost their lives. Thousands are without homes as a massive recovery mission is underway. We are teaming up with the Red Cross. Please join us in this rebuilding effort. It's as simple as scanning the QR code or following the link below. Stay safe.